Hi, and welcome to Session 1 of our Travel Safety and Security DVD series. I think we're going to keep your interest here in the next few sessions. I hope to anyway. We're here to talk about how to be able to go on a short-term trip and do so in a safer way, in a more secure way, and a little more confidence. And we're going to do some things that I think will make you feel better about the risks and the threats that are out there and help you to feel empowered to go out there and do what the Lord's calling you to do. Today, we're going to start off in this first session talking a lot about what the whole thing encapsulates and our goals here. But for number one, we're here to try and minimize harm to you individually, to try and reduce the risks of you being the victim of crime or being the victim of an unfriendly government or things like that. We're also going to talk specifically about just surviving an act of crime, a pickpocket, petty theft, a robbery, an assault, something worse, a kidnapping, a short-term detention. We're going to specifically talk to surviving those types of things and not allowing that to destroy the project that you've gone to do, the ministry that you've been called to serve in on this short-term trip. We need to get into some heavier stuff later in the sessions. We're going to discuss hostage survival a little bit. And by hostage survival, I don't necessarily mean the guy who spends the next 15 years, and then writes a book when he gets out after all that. That does happen. People are held long periods of time. But for a lot of folks, just going downtown and getting stuck at the wrong gas station or walk into the bank during a holdup, and now I've lost my freedom for 5 minutes. And so when I use the word hostage survival, I'm really talking robbery survival, mugger survival, and the classic, the guy who's trapped for 12 months in a situation like that, or a hijacking. We do need to talk a little bit about unfriendly government detention. It's on the increase, particularly for Americans and for Westerners traveling abroad. When you run into a country that's a little anti-U.S. or a little anti-Western, has a political agenda, or they're anti-missions. And so we're going to specifically get into the topic of unfriendly governments and what we can do to minimize that situation and to get ourselves out of it appropriately, and to minimize the damage we may have caused for the folks who live and work there all the time, for the national believers. I've got some strategies and some tips I want to share with you on that. And all of this is supposed to be tailored, if I've done my job right, for an audience of folks who are going on a short-term trip. It might be your first time overseas, and it might be your 20th time overseas. That there's things we can always learn. So I'm going to try and share with you tips and techniques that would be appropriate for any traveler going overseas for any amount of time, but I'm going to try and focus it for short-term folks.